All right, this is the first lecture for chapter 14, which deals with the lymphatic system and immunity. There we go. So the first question that we had kind of discussed earlier was, why do we need this system? Why do we need immunity? And the answer is we get hurt. And when we have some sort of physical injury, it opens up our bodies to colonization by bacteria, viruses, fungus, things like that. We encounter viruses and bacteria in our daily lives. And so those things that cause disease, those pathogens, we need to have a way of dealing with those organisms that are trying to invade our bodies. So that is one of the roles of the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system doesn't just do that. It does some other things. However, one of the primary functions is to produce, maintain, and distribute lymphocytes. As you remember, that word part "site" means cell, so lymphocytes are lymphatic cells. Lymphocytes are what are involved in your immune response. So the term for this is a cell-mediated immune response. That is, the cells you make, the lymphocytes, are what give you your immune response. If you do not make those cells, you don't get to have any protection in your body. Arguably, this makes sense because everything that does something in your body really is a cell or cells working together. So it makes sense that there's nothing, no like single thing that gives you your immune response, but rather a bunch of cells throughout your body working together in order to provide you with protection. Now, the lymphatic system as a whole does a couple of other things. It returns fluid from tissues to your bloodstream. So your tissues, different places in your body, have fluid in it. Those cells have fluid. Sometimes that fluid does osmose. As such, you will accumulate fluid in your tissues. That interstitial fluid needs to be returned back into your bloodstream. Another way of saying this is leaky cell juice. And so this stuff that osmosis and leaks out of your cells has to get cleaned up and then returned back to your bloodstream where it really should be. It also does aid in moving hormones from tissue to tissue, nutrients and waste into general circulation. This is like, maybe think of this if your circulatory system is your interstate highway system through your whole body. Sometimes lymphatic system would be like some of the side roads to that. They aren't the primary way of moving things around. You can't always get something from point A to point B through the lymphatic system, but you can move things into the bloodstream eventually. All right, so let's look at the overall organization. So in this diagram, you can see that the green vessels are lymphatic vessels. The little dots around there are your lymph nodes. And this is basically a drainage system to move that interstitial fluid out of your tissues and back into this main thoracic duct where it's going to re-enter the bloodstream. Some of the organs associated with this are your lymph nodes, your spleen, and your thymus. We'll take a closer look at those other of those organs in a little bit, perhaps next time, but we want to start off by talking about these lymphocytes that provide you with your immune response. Okay, so lymphocytes are lymphatic cells. So these are cells that are made in your lymphatic system. They can be made in different places. They have different jobs. Collectively, this is what gives you your immune response. Interestingly, the ones that we find in your bloodstream, we call them white blood cells. This is somewhat of a misnomer, in that they really are, I guess they are cells in your blood, but they aren't really have anything to do with what your red blood cells, with their main job of just carrying oxygen and gases and so forth. These don't have anything to do with them. They have their own unique job. Most of the 1 trillion lymphocytes, that's a lot of cells that you have in your body, are in your lymphatic system or embedded in tissues. Most of them are not in your blood. Now, if someone gets sick and we don't know why, They will do a white blood cell count in your blood. And if you have an excessive number of white blood cells or lymphocytes floating around in your bloodstream, it means there's a problem somewhere and you're generating more of those, and or they're migrating out of the tissues into the bloodstream to help solve a problem. However, you do have these embedded all over the place under your skin. They're kind of ubiquitous in your body because you never know where that invasion is going to come from. Your three main lymphocyte populations are T cells, B cells, and NK cells. And we're going to take a look at each of these types and what they do. So about 80% of your cells are lymphocytes are T cells. They're called T cells because they are formed in the thymus. So the thymus is a small organ. Here's the thyroid, here's your sternum, and right at the top of the sternum, anterior to the heart, is your thymus. All right, so these help manufacture these cells. One of these types of cells are called cytotoxic T cells. So cyto means cell and toxic means it's bad for it. So cytotoxic T cells actually are cells that destroy cells. They directly attack foreign cells or body cells infected with the virus. So here's the real question. How does a cytotoxic T cell know that a cell is foreign? Well, it goes back to the whole idea of antibodies and antigens like we saw with the bloodstream. Okay, if that cell is not one of your human body cells, it does not have your human body antigens or surface markers on it. Cytotoxic T cells take any cell that says, I'm not with you, and it destroys it. If a cell's not doing what it should be doing with the virus, that will inhibit the formation of those antigens and it will destroy it as well. So these just go around and these are the security guards, the bouncers, if you will, of your body. If they don't have the right antigens, they get attacked. Your helper and suppressor T cells help or don't help or suppress your cytotoxic T cells and your B cells. They stimulate your immune response to create more cells or have more active cells, or say, hey, you guys need to calm down. We don't need to overact about this. So helper and suppressor T cells either ramp up or slow down your immune response or your immune system. As a side note, HIV virus or AIDS actually targets these suppressor T cells. And so, the helper T cells. So those cells that actually are supposed to regulate your immune response are actually targeted by this virus. Therefore, when someone has HIV, they become susceptible to very common diseases that normally would not be life-threatening, become life-threatening because they cannot mount an immune response to that invading pathogen. B cells, about 10 to 15% of your cells are B cells, so called because they are formed in your bones. And these differentiate or develop into plasma cells. Plasma cells produce antibodies. Now remember, antibodies bind to antigens, foreign chemical flags, and that tags that cell or pathogen for destruction. So this is how you get your specific immune response. Let's say I got chickenpox as a kid, I survived. As a result, I then started producing antibodies that will target if that varicella chickenpox virus gets back in my body. These antigens, these antibodies should bind to those and target it for destruction, just like if you got the wrong blood type, right? So if you get coronavirus or get the vaccine for coronavirus, either way, you are going to create antibodies at your B cells that will target those proteins or antigens found on that virus. So that way, whenever you do get some more of it, like if you inhale some, this will immediately tag it for destruction. So that way it won't go ahead and take over your body. And finally, you've got NK cells. I really like NK cells because NK is easy to remember. These are natural killer cells. Pretty much, if you don't do everything right, NK cells destroy you. So they're very similar to cytotoxic T cells. They attack foreign cells, a cell infected with a virus, even cancer cells. You have these NK cells are like your, the the police department of your body, and anything that's just not doing what it's supposed to be, they go ahead and try to destroy those cells. So those help in your overall general immune response. You don't have as many of these as you do have of T cells and B cells, but you do have some of these. Okay, final term, and I think we'll stop here, is the term lymphopoiesis. So poiesis means the formation of something. And like we said, your T cells are formed in your thymus, your B cells are in your bones. And so those lymphocyte production is known as lymphopoiesis. So if you're saying that something stimulates your immune system, really the only way to truly stimulate your immune system is to just be able to increase lymphocyte production, which you do not always want, because if you have too active, like overstimulated lymphocytes, then you end up with an autoimmune disease. Like, for example, natural killer cells are great. They kill stuff. They're cells. But you don't want a whole bunch of NK cells floating around with nothing to do. Anything that was slightly off on any of your other cells, it's going to attack them and destroy them. That's what they're supposed to do. But if you have too many, then that's bad as well. Or if they're not functioning correctly, that would be bad. So autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or the disease called lupus is where your body is attacking itself instead of just attacking foreign things. And so that's problematic as well. All right, we will stop there. And next time we will pick up with actually some of the structures present in your lymphatic system.